Okay, man. Dude, let's talk about oxygen and CO2 exchange. Yeah, man, let's do it. So, before we talk about the transport of carbon dioxide in the blood, let's just do a quick review. This should be from Gen Bio, but I do want to review this. How we get the exchange of oxygen and CO2 across the alveolo-capillary membrane as well as the capillary membrane, um, and how that's going to impact the transport of oxygen and CO2 in the blood. So first we need to talk about the exchange of oxygen and CO2 between the lungs and the pulmonary capillaries. So here's our alveolo-capillary membrane, and then above this would be the air, and then here's the capillary membrane, and here's my plasma. First thing, the air that we inhale, is the concentration of oxygen in that air is higher than in the blood that's returning to the pulmonary circulation from the body. As a result of that, oxygen is going to move down its concentration gradients from high to low, from the air in the alveoli into the blood in the pulmonary capillaries. As a consequence of this, the blood that leaves the pulmonary circulation is what's called oxygen rich, which means the concentration of oxygen here is higher than it is on the other side of the circulation. All right. What about CO2? Well, this blood that's coming back to the pulmonary capillaries, the concentration of CO2 is higher than the concentration of CO2 in the air in the alveoli, in your lungs. So once again, how do these things move? They are nonpolar. They're going to move from regions of high to low pressure or high to low concentration. So they're going to move from the blood in the pulmonary capillaries to the air in the alveoli. And then when you exhale, you breathe that carbon dioxide out of your body. Get out of me, man! Get out! All right, cool. I'm going to chill. So now what happens down here? So this blood moves down into the left atrium, through the bicuspid valve, out the left ventricle, the aorta, down through the arteries, and now we've made it down to the capillaries and the systemic circulation. That's what this is representing. Now, what are these cells doing? These cells down here, they're performing cellular respiration, which means they're yum, yum, yum. They're consuming oxygen, and they're producing carbon dioxide as a byproduct. So, consuming oxygen, which means the oxygen in this oxygen-rich blood arriving to these cells is going to be higher than the oxygen in the cells themselves. What's oxygen going to do? It's going to move from the blood in the systemic capillaries into the cells. Boom. As a result, the blood that now leaves the systemic capillaries heading back to the right atrium is what's called oxygen poor blood, because it's lost some of its oxygen. Now, since these cells are producing carbon dioxide, the concentration of CO2 is going to be higher in the cells than it is in the blood in the systemic capillaries. What's CO2 going to do? Hey, yo, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move from high to low concentration. You know what I'm talking about. It's going to move from in the cells out into the blood in the systemic circulation. And then that blood returning back to the right side of the heart will have now higher concentrations of oxygen. Cool and the gang. Sweet. I'm done.